Hi everybody, it is KJ from Metro Hobbies and I'm about to talk you through a games gift guide because it's that time of year and we have families and friends that we need to give gifts to, and it's a whole spectrum of people. So I'm going to go through a whole different type of games, so party games, strategy games, ones for lots of people, ones for a small number of people, solo games that somebody can occupy their time with on their own, and I'm going to try and arrange them in easy, medium and harder, so you can have a little idea of who they're for. But hey, without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so I'm going to start with some easy level, and I'm going to start with what we'd call stocking fillers, I guess, and things that are for young ones to play with. I guess we can classify them as games. Duncan does a huge range of things like yo-yos, and my favorite is the Komodo, which is not really a yo-yo, but it's a great little exercise in puzzles. And speaking of yo-yos, something I did want to mention that they've done is that they've brought out a range of Duncan Ford yo-yos and Holden Duncan Holden Duncan yo-yos. So Holden and Ford can have a battle out in yo-yo land as well as the engineering room. Cool little gifts, great for the great stocking fellas. And there are other sort of mind puzzles and games of that nature that I'll go through of different levels. I'm going to mention Hanayama because Hanayama has various different levels. There are levels that are easier than there are harder. So I'm going to start with some things that are for the younger audience. So they're easy in the sense that a younger audience could actually be part of them as well, and also the content as well, because some of the things are easy, but the content's for older audiences. This one is a highly recommended for anyone you wanting to get into chess, because this is a step-by-step storybook intro into chess. This is Storytime Chess, which has actually won awards. It's incredibly popular because it is so successful at gradually stepping people into the strategy of chess, which is a great skill to have to be able to outwit your opponents. This is something that will grow with your young person as they learn chess and then move up into things like vertical chess. We also have some things for some younger audiences. I wanted to mention some card games, and so let's have a look at those. So Set is a very simple, straightforward perception game. It is a great stocking filler. It is really good. You're trying to be the first to perceive the set collection in the array of cards that are out in front of you. It's a very simple game. It is for a wide range of audience, and it will scale from like an age 6 all the way up to 99 or however long you want to live for. We've also got some classics that things like Uno Flip. Uno Flip is a fun take on Uno where the cards can actually be flipped around, and so that you've actually got another operation to actually to deal with on the flip side. So that's a really cool one. Also, Exploding Kittens. Now, a lot of you might know about Exploding Kittens, a pretty simple game to get into. It has got a wide appeal because of the humor inside it. There's lots of different variants, lots of different expansions, but the one I want to highlight is Zombie. Exploding Kittens Zombie, because it puts a whole new spin on it, a whole new lot of puns, and I'll give you a look at that one. Exploding Kittens Zombies. Cartoon is the same, the puns are the same, the fun is even more. So that one is, I recommend, so probably like an 8+ range, but it's a fairly simple game to get into. It's something you can get to the table straight away. There are other games that are for more, I guess it's still an 8+ range. We also have Sushi Go. Sushi Go is a popular game. It's a popular game for a good reason. It is first introduction to what's called drafting. Don't be afraid by any terms that I use. All the instructions are in these games. I just might be familiar with them. But this is a really fun game. Highly recommended. I don't know anyone who's played it who's decided that they don't like it. That's a really, really good one to go for. Now I want to talk about some party games, because these games are of the easy level. Some of them are actually great because you've got at Christmas time, you're going to have a huge number of people that you're occupying. So this is a really, really good game to have for large audiences, because it can go up to 20 players because it's a team-based game. Highly popular, Wavelength. Wavelength is a game of a team-based game where you're trying to get your team to guess where a target is. The target is obscured by a little visor, and you can think, oh, it's coffee. So you've got to have to think about how hot does a person think coffee is to where it is on the scale. And the closer they get to where the actual target is, the more points they get. It's a great fun game. It's very much a sort of a game of like perception as well, in terms of like your word perception and understanding different people. It's fun. Wavelength, great for large numbers of players. If you're wanting something a little bit more for older audiences, but it's still fairly easy to get to the table and a laugh, and maybe you're a horror fan, like your old classic retro horror fan, then the game to have and the new one that's popular is Psycho Killer. I know, it's so savory, but it is incredible lot of fun to actually get to the table. It is definitely one that you'd have around with like your uni friends or like your teenage friends. A lot of fun, that one, fairly easy to get to the table. For those who are fans of sitcoms, and especially fans of The Office, you might have heard of the game Meme, or What Do You Meme? And it's a popular game, but the one that you're probably wanting to pick up this Christmas is What Do You Meme? The Office. So that's going to be really, really popular with sitcom fans. Obviously, it is a fairly easy game to get to the table, but it is a 16 plus, which is why I've sort of left it around towards the end. It's not a difficult game to do. It's just one for an older audience because of the humor involved. But that's What Do You Meme? The Office. Now, I have one that is a fairly straightforward game that is going to appeal to a fairly decent sized audience. This is one where you have... you're trying to sell something. And what are you trying to sell? Well, you're a snake oil charmer. So this is snake oil. What cures you? What ails you? This game is that you're taking two different cards, you're putting them together, and you're creating your own concoction of something to sell. Who you're selling to, there'll be one player. They have what's called a customer card, and that customer card could represent a billionaire. It could represent the nice old lady on the street. It could represent your neighbor. And you have to do a sales pitch that sells your product to that person, and that person obviously then decides who is the most successful pitcher, and then whoever gets the most customer cards at the end wins the game. It's a hell of a laugh. It's going to be building up a little bit of debate skills without you even realizing it. Very popular. I would grab this one as soon as you can. It's great for a huge number of audiences, and it's really easy to pick up, which is really handy. Now, I've already mentioned Exploding Kittens, but I shouldn't go without mentioning Mantis, which is one of their latest new card games. And this is about collecting matching sets of cards, lots and lots of color. It's very, very popular, one that somebody wouldn't have picked up for sure, and it's different from Exploding Kittens. So it's not just a re-theme with all the really cool puns. This is a brand new game with a brand new set of colors and a brand new set of cartoons to enjoy. That's Mantis. Now, if you are fans of the Exploding Kittens, before I move on to the medium level games, I want to talk about some puzzles. These aren't mind puzzles. These are just literal jigsaw puzzles where you're putting them together. But if you're an Exploding Kitten fan, these are going to appeal to you. There's a whole range of them. These are just an example of what you can get. But for people who are a fan of Exploding Kittens and also a fan of puzzles, these are fantastic. Or even if you're a fan of cats, actually. I think people who have a good sense of humor are a fan of cats and puzzles. These are going to be a perfect gift. They're a really good thing to add on to like to your main Christmas event. The next group of games that I'm going to be looking at are medium level games. Again, they're going to span a different range of types of games. There's going to be strategy and family games, but they're of what's called a medium weight, so you have to have a little bit of nous to pick them up, and some of them are definitely solo games. So let's take a look. I'm going to start with the exit games. The exit games are a series of solo games or puzzles. You could play with them cooperatively and you can play them on your own. They're a really good stocking filler. They've come out with a huge range of them. I'm going to highlight some of the new ones. So we've got the Shadows over Middle-earth. So it's a Lord of the Rings themed puzzle. So for all those Lord of the Rings fans and for people who like to solve puzzles and work things out, the exit game, The Lord of the Rings, is the game to get. Now, there are some of you out there who like to solve puzzles, but you also like jigsaws. So the exit games have actually included a puzzle that you need to be able to build with actually solving puzzles. They've got very different versions of this. This one we've got is Nightfall Manor, which is very, very cool. You've got your little, all your details. You don't know what puzzles you have, but you will at the end of it once you've solved it. So the exit games, huge range. Lots of them. Could bring out so many of them. They're an excellent value for money, and they're also an excellent gift for both people who like to work together and also who like to solve puzzles on their own. Now, speaking of puzzles to solve, there are a few here that will vary in their difficulty level. I want to point out the IQ mind puzzle range. There are definitely a huge number of ones to choose from. You might even have some, or your family might have some. There's the IQ Focus. There's IQ Arrows, there's IQ Pro Fit. These are great. I have them. They can be played anywhere because they come in a perfect little case. So it's a great game to have when you're traveling. So it's easy for them to get out and occupy their mind with trying to solve the next puzzle. And it starts off with easy and it goes all the way to very extreme difficulty. So a person can gradually feel better about themselves without to solve these visual spatial puzzles. And there's various different ranges of them that get you to solve different types of visual puzzles. So I highly recommend those. And then I did mention Hanayama before. These are my favorite. So you've got a labyrinth one to solve, and this is on the extreme ends. This is more a difficult one. This is more medium, which is the donuts. And the idea is you need to actually separate them, but the other puzzle is that you need to actually then try and put them back together. So there's 2 puzzles in here. They will occupy time, and they are not occupying time in a draining way. It is occupying time in a very enjoyable way. You're exercising your mind. So they are great stocking fillers. They're great little gifts, Secret Santa type gifts. Now, what else do we have that aren't your solo games? There are a few here that are in the medium level. There is Bohnanza. Bohnanza seems like it's just a card game, just a simple, straightforward card game, but do not be surprised by the size of this box. This is a medium weight game. You would be playing with people at about 10 plus. This is a game of bean counters. And the person who designed this, Uwe Rosenberg, is a bit of a mathematician. So you want to grow your farm and grow your beans and maximize your crops, and you want to sell them at the right time to maximize your profits back, because ultimately you're trying to get the most money. So it is about working out what's the best strategy, and there is a little bit of abstract thinking going on in order to do that. But the game's rules are pretty straightforward, but it is definitely a medium level sort of thinking game. So it's a really good one to get to the table if you want something a little bit more thinky, but isn't going to be overwhelming in its rules, because obviously there are many games that have vast number of rules, and sometimes that's the fun of it. So one of my personal favorites is Love Letter. It is a very easy game to get to the table, but it is more of a medium game. There's a little bit of bluffing involved. There is also a little bit of assessing in terms of how many cards of each are left on the tables, because you're trying to actually find, in the original one, you're trying to locate where the princess is, and you're trying to get all the other players out. My favorite version of this is Jabba's Palace, or the Star Wars version. The card art is pretty spectacular. The components are excellent. The gameplay is well, and everyone has a blast. This is something you start your game night with. Okay, a medium level game gift guide would not be complete if I didn't mention the classic that made all modern games amazing, and that is Catan. Catan is the trade, build, settle. It is about negotiation, there's strategy, you're planning out where you're going to build your empire. Catan is possibly a game that your family and loved ones may actually already own. That's fine. This game is so loved. There are so many expansions that you can grab. There's one that you can expand the number of players. So this is a 4-player game. You could expand it up to 5 or 6 players, or you could make it more interesting. You could make it more interesting with Catan, Traders and Barbarians. You could make it more interesting with Cities and Knights. You do need the base game. I will remind you to play these. Now, there's another set of expansions. One that you can use with just the base game, and another one you need another expansion. Catan expansion Seafarers, which adds water to the mix. So let's go out and conquer the world, as it were. People do seem to like to do that. But how about we get some treasures, some dragons, and some adventure along with that Seafarers. So the Seafarers is the expansion to Catan Trade, Build and Settle. But if you want to expand some more on that, and I think you should, is the Treasures and Dragons. You will need the Seafarers, so you'll need these 2 as well as the base game. If they've got the base game, this is what you're picking up for them for this Christmas. It really just expands the empire, expands the adventure, and expands the mind, and gives you something more interesting. So that's something that's so wonderful about Catan, is that once you've learned the game, you've got all the base strategies, you can then expand and add more different types of strategies by adding the expansion. So it's a game that grows with you. It's not one that you just leave behind. And sometimes when you get a game and now it's become too easy, you're just going to have to pick up another one. This one you get to expand. This one you get to up the complexity. So Catan is loved for a reason. We're going to get into the advanced section. Definitely teenagers are probably going to build this unless you've got some kind of prodigy, and that's fine, you can have a prodigy. This is called Reload. Reload is for those people who really enjoy Fortnite, but you want to get them to the table and see the tactile adventure of having miniatures land on the board and then battle it out with another miniature, and you're having to play your cards well. This is Reload. You have your own space that you're dropping into, you have your miniature, you have your character's inventory of what they can do that you can expand on and make them better with better weapons, with better power boosts and so forth. And basically it's a fight for fame game. It is Fortnite in a box, guys, but it's tactile. And let's get them away from the screens and have a little bit of fun. Now this one is a highlight for me. This one came out this year. It is adorable, but it's also very thinky as well. I think this will appeal to a wide range of audiences, especially those who like dragons and those who like beautiful artwork. It was born out of love of somebody's artwork, and then they've actually created a game around it, and they've done an excellent job, and that is called Flamecraft. Flamecraft is something that does card drafting, it does set collection, it does engine building. Now these are all terms that you may not be fully familiar with, but if this is somebody who plays games, they know these terms and they will understand the rules. What's wonderful about this is that the rules are so straightforward the way they've laid it out. It's an excellent rule book. It's hard to say that about some rule books. Some rule books can be convoluted, but the rule book in this is incredible. It's also a 1 to 5 player. That means you can have somebody who plays it on their own, and you can have obviously a group of players. It scales according to your level, so you can have some starter decks, and then as you get better, you can add in some more complexity in terms of the cards. It is a lot of fun to play. It has got beautiful artwork and beautiful little wooden dragons, and there's little coins. I can't speak highly enough. This is a great Christmas present for people who like board games, and especially for people who like beautiful art. It may even be something, if you've got a really smart person who hasn't even tried board games before, I reckon they would probably really love to jump into this one. Now this one is one of my favorites because I'm a fan of Star Wars. I don't know if you've heard that anywhere before, but I am. I also like the Pandemic system. So Pandemic, not the Pandemic, but Pandemic, the board game, has a system that's been developed over years that is much loved and an incredibly excellent system for cooperative play. And they've come up with Star Wars, the Clone Wars, the Pandemic system. Now this has got miniatures in it, it's got droids in it, you are combating the Separatists, obviously it's the Clone Wars. It's got a great board, each spot on the board is represented by a different planet in the Galactic Empire. You represent one of the Jedis, so you could be Ahsoka Tano if you wanted, you could be Luke Skywalker, Anakin Skywalker. You've also got Darth Maulers in there, you've got General Grievous in there. I mean, for the miniatures alone, this is worth a lot. This is good value, but the game itself is a lot of fun. So for those people who are Star Wars fans, and a lot of you probably picked up and actually played the game Pandemic in these last few years, well, this ups its level, but also makes it more interesting and brings back the love, brings back the fun. So highly recommended Star Wars: The Clone Wars. Okay, and so then we also have, no, this is not the brick game. No, this is an advent calendar, but something you should definitely pick up. Now, I mentioned Catan. Last on my list is a more difficult version of Catan. Now, this is not something that you have for the base game. It's not an expansion. It is a whole new Catan. It is Catan, Dawn of Humankind. So this one is going to have miniatures on the field, so I guess you can think of it a little bit in terms of risk because you've got that sort of empire building going on. It's a 3 to 4 player game. It is definitely for those who are ages 12 and up, and it is going to play for 90 minutes, so it will occupy some strategy developing time. This is a game that was incredibly popular at the last board gaming conventions. Everyone was wanting to pick this one up. It is a lot of fun. People loved and grew up with Catan, and they wanted something a little bit more meaty. This is the game. This is Catan, Dawn of Humankind, and definitely for those board game lovers, it's brand new. I doubt they have it, but they're gonna want it. So that is actually just a selection of this year's gift guide. There are a huge number of games that you can choose from. I have put together a list of gift ideas that you can browse, but if you have any questions, obviously give us a call. Come into store, Melbourne, Box Hill, Dandenong. We've got 3 locations. We have an online website if you're wanting to just browse, and obviously you can reach us on the phone if you're wanting to have a conversation, ask questions. If you aren't sure what they might be like, but you know what they already have that conversation, and we'll find the perfect game for them. And so, without further ado, if you can imagine it, you can immerse yourself in it.